Recently, there has been a small boom in Battlefield 5's popularity that has enticed me to return to the game, and while I've quickly picked up where I left off, I've noticed lots of new players in my lobbies looking to discover what weapons are good. So I thought I'd follow up on my lists for Battlefield 1 with my picks for the top 10 weapons in Battlefield 5 in 2024. Timestamps will be provided in the description, and if you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to leave them in the comments section down below. We've got a pretty long one today, guys, so let's quit mincing words and get right into it. Starting our list off at number 10, we've got the Lewis gun. The Lewis gun is a World War I era light machine gun that was designed privately in the United States, although was never adopted there. Its design would be finalised and mass-produced in the UK, and would see widespread use by the British Empire in the First World War. Come World War II, its infantry and aircraft use would be supplanted. However, following the fall of France, a large portion of the British Army's equipment would be lost at Dunkirk. This dire need for armaments would result in the Lewis gun being hurriedly pressed back into service, primarily for the Home Guard, airfield defence and anti-aircraft use. The LMG would also see frontline use by Allied forces in the early years of the Pacific Campaign against the Japanese. In total, more than 150,000 Lewis guns would be produced during the Second World War, and the weapon would continue to serve until the end of the Korean War. The Lewis gun has the highest magazine capacity of all LMGs in Battlefield 5, carrying 47 rounds at a time. This is partnered to a reasonably rapid 3.55 second tactical and 4.55 second empty reload, especially considering the number of rounds interchanged at a time. While the weapon's damage model and fire rate don't lend the LMG the most mind-blowing time to kill, with figures ranging from 0.33 to 0.67 of a second, the Lewis gun handles incredibly well when playing to its strengths. Its large magazine, reasonable 740 meters per second bullet velocity, and manageable recoil make it one of the best weapons for suppressive fire and engaging multiple combatants at medium range. While it's certainly not the prime candidate to lead the fight from the front, the Lewis is perhaps the best supportive weapon in the game, softening up and distracting large swaths of enemies without completely compromising an individual's ability to engage on the move. The specializations I recommend running include quick aim, the ported barrel, the barrel bedding, and the recoil buffer. This build allows the Lewis to gain some additional accuracy while aiming down sights, and reduces both its horizontal and vertical recoil, improving the weapon's performance at range, and allowing the player to more easily support their team from afar. Overall, the Lewis gun is a well-rounded example of what a support weapon should be, capable of adequately suppressing large swaths of land for allied pushes, while holding its own reasonably well in firefights. Despite this, its time to kill, while serviceable, does lag quite far behind other options on this list, making it much better suited for team fights than one-on-one engagements. Moving on to number 9, and the last weapon from the support class, we've got the BAR M1918A2. The Browning Automatic Rifle, or BAR, refers to a family of American automatic rifles and machine guns used by the United States during the 20th century. The primary variant, the M1918, was chambered for the same cartridge as the Springfield rifle, and would see some action during the late stages of World War I. However, it would not be made standard issue until 1938, when the light machine gun converted M1918A2 would be adopted by the US Army. It saw extensive service during the Second World War, and would continue to see the front lines into the early stages of the Vietnam War, with quantities even remaining in use by the Army National Guard up until the mid-1970s. While the BAR's 20-round magazine is perhaps the weapon's biggest detriment, its raw killing potential exceeds any other LMG available in Battlefield 5, dealing 25.1 damage per bullet while firing at 720 rounds per minute. The BAR's time to kill ranges from 0.25 to 0.5 of a second, numbers that outpace all but the deadliest of weapons available. While this fire rate and magazine capacity does leave the weapon in need of reloading quite frequently, its 2.45 second tactical and 3.3 second empty reload times are among the best in class. The weapon is also quite capable at range, retaining the 740 meter per second bullet velocity of the previously mentioned Lewis gun. However, Its consistency past 25 meters is largely determined on an individual's ability to handle recoil, with the BAR sporting some of BF5's highest horizontal and vertical recoil figures. The specializations I recommend running include quick aim, the ported barrel, the custom stock, and the lightened stock. Aiming to maximize the LMG's performance when aiming down sights, this build also reduces its horizontal jump, allowing it to be a bit more controllable over distance. In general, the BAR M1918A2 is one of the deadliest weapons for one-on-one engagements, yet its 20-round magazine does limit you when attempting to engage multiple enemies, with you realistically needing to reload between every 2 kills at best. Partnering this with its steep recoil figures, I can see how it could be a tough sell to some, but through clever use and practice, few other weapons can command the respect of the battlefield as well as the BAR. For number 8, I've placed this list's only bolt-action sniper rifle, the Krag Jorgensen. The Krag Jorgensen is a repeating bolt-action rifle designed by Ole Herman Johannes Krag and Erik Jorgensen that would be adopted as the standard rifle by Norway, Denmark, and the United States. During the German occupation of Norway, demands would be made to arm German forces, with large orders for the Krag Jorgensen, Colt M1914 and 40mm anti-aircraft guns being placed. However, production would be intentionally slowed through the means of sabotage and workers working below capacity. Out of 13,450 rifles ordered by the Germans, only around 3,500 would actually be delivered. Throughout the rifle's lifespan, over 20 variants will be produced to fit the service needs of different armies, with the weapon's last production line coming in 1951, when 1,000 rifles would be produced for civilian hunters and sharpshooters. When it comes to bolt-action rifles in Battlefield 5, bullet velocity and fire rate are perhaps the most important figures to measure statistical excellence. Thus, the Krag Jorgensen's 900 meters per second bullet velocity, a value tied for the fastest in the game, immediately positions it at the forefront of these rifles. What separates it from the Kar 98K, the only other weapon to share this figure, is its faster fire rate of 54 rounds per minute and higher magazine capacity of 6 rounds. Although its 60 damage per bullet is tied for the lowest in class, the rifle does not experience damage drop-off over range, allowing it to retain its one-shot headshot capabilities regardless of distance. The specializations I recommend running for the Krag include quick aim, the custom stock, the machined bolt, and the bayonet. The key feature here is the inclusion of the machined bolt, improving the rifle's fire rate from 54 rounds per minute to 64 rounds per minute, and further distancing the rifle from the Kar 98K. While some may prefer the bipod to the bayonet to improve prone accuracy, I'm a firm believer in the philosophy of a stationary sniper is a dead sniper, especially with scope glint being so easy to spot in Battlefield 5. While some may scoff at the inclusion of a bolt-action rifle on this list, or even disagree with my selection of the Krag Jorgensen as the best-in-class pick, I believe that the rifle's strengths allow it to firmly outpace its competition. Although, despite the high skill ceiling of the weapon class, bolt-action rifles have perhaps the lowest floor, and are completely unsuited to some maps and sectors, so I cannot in good faith place the Krag Jorgensen any higher. Shifting our focus to the assault class, at number 7 I've got the Gewehr 43. The Gewehr 43, or Karabiner 43, is a German semi-automatic rifle developed during the Second World War. The rifle would be the successor to the previously produced Gewehr 41W, which encountered reliability issues in combat due to its lack of gas ports in the barrel. The revamped G43 would emulate the simple, sturdier gas operation mechanism of the SVT series of Soviet rifles, making the weapon both lighter and easier to manufacture. Entering production in October 1943, by the end of the war, an estimated 402,713 rifles were manufactured, having seen use up and down the ranks of the German army. The Gewehr 43 ties the Karabin 1938M for best-in-class damage performance, dealing 45 damage per bullet up to 25 meters, before dropping to 28 damage past 150 meters. Partnered with the weapon's 300 round per minute fire rate, the rifle's time to kill rests between 0.4 to 0.6 of a second. While this figure isn't astounding, mixing in even a single headshot at any range drops the rifle's TTK to 0.2 of a second flat, demonstrating the G43's excellence from medium to long range, especially when factoring in its respectable 760 meters per second bullet velocity. This mid-range role is further reinforced when taking into account its 10-round magazine. Where the Gewehr 43 can really separate itself is when factoring in specializations, of which I recommend running quick aim, the enhanced grips, the detachable magazines, and the recoil buffer. This setup allows the rifle to reset its reticle placement following fire as quickly as possible, while exchanging its stripper clip reload with a detachable magazine, which can be interchanged in 2.25 seconds when tactically reloading, or 3.15 seconds when empty. As a whole, the Gewehr 43 is one of the best medium-range weapons in the game, especially when factoring in the rifle's absurd TTK when mixing in but a single headshot. Put simply, from 25 to 50 meters, very few firearms are capable of keeping up with the damage that it can put downfield. Nevertheless, the Gewehr 43 can struggle to compete amongst the best of the best, especially against the abundance of fully automatic weapons with blistering TTKs that can stretch their legs into the ranges where the rifle excels. Next up is, in my opinion, the most underrated rifle in Battlefield 5, the MAS-44. The MAS-44 was a prototype semi-automatic rifle designed to replace the French military's older bolt-action rifles. The prototype itself evolved several times, from the MAS-38, 39 and MAS-40 rifles, alongside several customised variants such as the 44A, 44B and 44C. The French Navy would order 50,000 prototype rifles in January 1945, but only around 6,300 would be delivered, causing the rifle to only see limited use during the Second World War. Despite this, the MAS-44's successor, the MAS-49, would eventually be adopted by the French Army in 1949, and would see service during the first half of the Cold War. The first three numbers that pop out to you when assessing the MAS-44's in-game performance are its best-in-class bullet velocity of 820 meters per second, its fire rate of 360 rounds per minute, and damage model of 40 damage per bullet. These three values establish the MAS as one of the deadliest semi-automatic rifles available, with a TTK ranging from 0.33 to 0.67 of a second, and an optimal TTK of between 0.16 and 0.33 of a second. Figures that compete with some of BF5's best primary options. Although its 11-round magazine and stripper clip reload does hamper the rifle's ability to engage multiple combatants, it too can be greatly improved with careful specialization selection. In this regard, I recommend running an identical setup to the Gewehr 43, with quick aim, the enhanced grips, the detachable magazines, and the recoil buffer. While the detachable magazine available to the MAS-44 doesn't reload quite as quickly as the G43, its 2.8 second tactical and 3.6 second empty reload are still respectable figures. Putting all of these numbers together, the MAS-44 is one of the deadliest, most consistent rifles in the assault arsenal, capable of rapidly eliminating enemies within 4 shots up to around 100 meters. Additionally, its fire rate allows it to out-DPS some SMGs up close, and ensures the rifle can remain competitive regardless of the situation the user is placed in. Mate this to a reload that allows for its wielder to quickly re-engage targets, I believe the MAS easily outclasses all other semi-automatic rifles, and stands firmly as one of the best weapons in all of Battlefield 5. Kicking off our top 5, I think it's only right that I introduce the first SMG on this list, the M.I.M.E KP-31. The M.I.M.E KP-31 is a Finnish submachine gun that entered service in 1931, and remained in use until the 1980s. Regarded as one of the most successful SMGs of the World War II era, the M.I.M.E would have a profound influence on the Winter War between the Soviet Union and Finland between 1939 and 1940. The weapon would see further use during the Continuation War and Lapland War, and would influence the development of the Russian PPSH-41 submachine gun. The M.I.M.E is unlocked at Medic Class Rank 1, and is immediately one of the deadliest weapons available to the class. Firing at 770 rounds per minute, the SMG has one of the highest time to kill figures in Battlefield 5, taking between 0.24 and 0.63 of a second to down an enemy. This figure is balanced out by both high recoil and only a 20-round magazine. However, this is completely undone with specializations, due to the availability of the recoil buffer and extended magazine, making the weapon much more controllable, and boosting its magazine up to 50 rounds. Mated to a 2.5 second tactical and 3.75 second empty reload, The Suomi can easily engage and dispatch entire squads of enemies before repositioning, even if its reload values are worst in class. To partner with the recoil buffer and extended magazines, I recommend running both quick aim and the custom stock in order to maximise the SMG's aim performance while moving, facilitating an aggressive, in-your-face playstyle. Although I would not recommend using the Suomi at range due to its steep damage drop-off and slow bullet velocity of 330 meters per second, there is a reason it has remained one of the most dominant SMGs since the launch of Battlefield 5. To put it simply, very few players and firearms can hope to compete with a competent, aggressive medic player wielding a Suomi KP-31, especially on close-quartered infantry maps like Our March Encampment and Operation Underground. Shifting back to the assault class, at number 4 is the Sturmgewehr 1.5. The term Volkssturmgewehr refers to a family of German rifles manufactured during the final months of World War II. Intended as a last-ditch effort to arm the German national militia, all Volkssturmgewehr were simple firearms in order to cope with the nation's lack of resources and industrial capacity at the time. The most famous of these rifles was the Gustloff Volkssturmgewehr, or the VG-15. Using the same cartridge as the STG-44, these rifles were semi-automatic only, with rumours of a selective fire prototype existing. Between 1945 and the end of the war, roughly 10,000 rifles would be manufactured for the mobilised Volkssturm, before being abandoned following the war. Battlefield 5's Sturmgewehr 1.5 is DICE's interpretation of what the selective fire VG-15 prototype could have been, firing at 670 rounds per minute with rather controllable recoil figures. The weapon represents a nice middle ground between the STG-44 and M1907 SF. Time to kill values fall between 0.27 and 0.54 of a second, with its optimal TTK resting between 0.09 and 0.27 of a second. Tack on a 30 round magazine, 620 meters per second bullet velocity, as well as a 2.3 second tactical and 3.5 second empty reload, the Sturmgewehr stands firmly as one of the most consistent assault rifles available in Battlefield 5. For specializations, I run the rifle with quick aim, the ported barrel, the custom stock, and the lightened stock in order to make the rifle as accurate as possible, particularly while moving. This enables me to alternate my engagement style as much as possible, as the improved moving accuracy assists in close-range firefights, while the weapon naturally holds its own between 20 to 50 meters. Although its TTK is not as blistering as the M1907 SF, it doesn't lag behind enough to overlook the fact that the Sturmgewehr 1.5 combines all facets of a weapon more ideally than any other automatic rifle available in the game. Whether it be in the face of an SMG-wielding medic, or pushing between cover while fighting off suppressing LMGs, the Sturmgewehr can hold its own and has arguably the highest floor of any weapon. Alright, top 3 time. And to the frustration of some, I've got one of the most hated weapons in Battlefield 5, the Type 2A. The Nambu Experimental Type 1 submachine gun, sometimes incorrectly referred to as the Type 2A, was a Japanese SMG developed in 1934. It was trialled for service by the Imperial Japanese Army, but was rejected. Even so, limited numbers were issued to the Japanese Navy Marines in Shanghai during the Second Sino-Japanese War. The weapon utilised a curved 50-round magazine that was fed through its pistol grip, the first firearm to feed in such a way. However, this curved design would result in frequent complaints regarding the weapon's awkward ergonomics. While it was offered for commercial export, the Type 1 saw little to no sales, resulting in very few examples ever being manufactured. Despite dealing only 20.1 damage per bullet, the Type 2A only knows how to do things one way: fast. Its 1028 round per minute fire rate, fast. Its 1.93 second tactical and 2.8 second empty reload, fast. Its 0.23 to 0.53 of a second TTK. You guessed it, fast. Really, only 3 things hold the Type 2A in check: its average 31 round magazine, fairly unruly recoil, and pitiful 315 meters per second bullet velocity. So what does DICE do? Give it specializations that improve upon this, of course, with the extended magazine giving the SMG access to 50 rounds at a time, while the recoil buffer reduces its vertical kick. Considering these factors, it should be of no surprise that I prefer to run the 2A with quick aim, the custom stock, the extended magazine, and the recoil buffer. Some may be surprised to see the Type 2A at only number 3, as within 30 meters there isn't really any weapon that can hope to compete with it. to the point there are a number of servers that flat out ban its use. However, my issue with it is its consistency. Past 30 meters, the 2A can be a pain to use considering the number of bullets required to down an enemy is so much greater than the other SMGs. This is only compounded by its bullet velocity, which is worse than some pistols. Plus, at close range, it just kind of feels cheap, and I honestly do not enjoy using the weapon. Clown me if you want, but I'm not putting the Type 2A any higher than 3. Moving from one broken weapon to another, at number 2 I've got the ZH-29. The ZH-29 was a semi-automatic rifle developed by Czechoslovakia in the late 1920s. The rifle was never adopted by the Czech army and only saw limited export sales, of which the largest was to the Republic of China and Ethiopia. It was also trialled by the United States and Britain, but was formally rejected by both. Due to these limited sales, the ZH-29 would never enter mass production. Despite this though, it can be argued that it served a prominent role in modern military history, as following the German occupation of Czechoslovakia in 1938, small numbers of the rifle would be issued to German troops, and it is said to have inspired the design of the STG-44 assault rifle. While initial impressions of the ZH-29 can be underwhelming compared to its contemporaries due to its slowest in class fire rate of 150 rounds per minute, its strengths lie in its damage model and specialisation options. The ZH deals 54 damage per bullet up to 25 meters, before dropping to 52.1 past 70, making the weapon a 2-shot kill regardless of range and giving it a 0.4 of a second flat time to kill. This damage is complemented by a 760 meters per second bullet velocity, making the ZH-29 one of the most consistent rifles regardless of range. What truly separates the ZH from all other self-loading rifles in Battlefield 5, however, is the detachable magazine specialisation, which allows the rifle to hold 6 rounds at a time, while swapping its stripper clip reload for a 2.95 second tactical and 4.55 second empty reload. Alongside the detachable magazines, I recommend running the rifle with quick aim, the barrel bedding, and the recoil buffer in order to maximise the weapon's controllability and aimed performance. To be frank, being deleted by a ZH-29 is about as rage-inducing as having a Type 2A shoved up your urethra. What places the ZH above the 2A for me is the fact that the ZH can evoke that same reaction from 10, 50, 100, even 200 meters away. While its 0.4 second TTK isn't the highest figure in the game, it's still fast enough that it can be difficult to react to, especially when the rifle's user could literally be anywhere on the map. There is simply no counterplay to a skilled marksman with a ZH-29 parked 50 meters away. You just die. Even if you close that gap, miss one bullet, and you still die. It's simply ridiculous. Finally, at the top of this list, the best of the best, and my number one weapon in Battlefield 5 in 2024, I've got the ZK-383. The ZK-383 was a Czechoslovakian submachine gun manufactured from 1938 to 1948, with most being supplied to the Waffen-SS during Germany's occupation of Czechoslovakia. Originally designated to be a squad automatic weapon similar to the British Bren and Soviet DP-27, the weapon was both heavy and robust, with military variants equipped with detachable barrels, an integrated bipod, and rifle-type sights, components considered unusual for SMGs of the era. Following the war, it would continue to be produced in small numbers before being phased out by smaller, lighter submachine guns. However, Bulgaria would continue using the weapon until the 1970s. In its base form, the ZK-383 slips into the slow-firing, low-recoil archetype of SMGs with a 514 round per minute fire rate, 2.1 second tactical and 2.96 second empty reload, and 30 round magazine. However, this is flipped on its head when equipping the light bolt specialisation, bumping the fire rate up to 720 rounds per minute with only a moderate increase in recoil. This improves the SMG's TTK from between 0.35 to 0.93 of a second, up to between 0.25 and 0.67 of a second, aligning the weapon with other top-tier SMGs and assault rifles. What separates the ZK from its immediate competition, however, is its 495 meters per second bullet velocity, a best-in-class figure. Alongside the light bolt, I run the ZK-383 with the lightened stock, quick aim, and high velocity bullets, bumping the SMG's bullet velocity up even further and effectively converting it into a Sturmgewehr 1.5 with the movement capabilities of a Type 2A. Some may argue that the CH-29's consistent damage over range outpaces the ZK, or that the Type 2A's blistering close-range kill potential leaves the weapon untouched, or even that the Sturmgewehr 1.5's optimised brilliance outshines the ZK's best traits. However, I believe the ZK-383 outshines them all by taking bits and pieces of other top-tier threats and combining them into one sweet Czechoslovakian package. Maneuverable, controllable, quick to reload, consistent at range, and most of all, utterly deadly. What more can you ask for in a weapon? Cheers for making it to the end of the video, guys. What do you think of my list? Do you agree with my picks? Let me know down in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe with post notifications turned on so you don't miss another upload. Videos might be a little bit slower coming out in these next couple weeks. My personal life gets a lot busier, so we'll just have to wait and see what kind of clips that I can pull off. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed and you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace out.
I stopped asking for forgiveness, 'cause you should know only fools tread where the